Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Live with Lenny. It's Thursday. It's just after 5 o'clock, and thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be talking about the offshore dilemma and how to save the day when the bite is off. And we're going to get to Lenny in just a second. But of course, as you all know, it's my job to take care of a little bit of business. And today, like it has been for quite some time, we have been very appreciative of Boat Life. They are a prize sponsor today. And today, the giveaway, live well and bait well cleaner. How fitting. Today, if you ask a question and we use it, we're going to throw your name into a little hat. And before the end of the show, we'll draw some names. And if you get your name there, we will we'll put we'll send you some live well and bait well cleaner. I mean, how cool is that? Just so you know, we also have a 25% discount code. It is SPIN11. I'll put that up on the screen here in just a second. But that gives you 25% off at boatlife.com off all their products. So give that a shout. Do that. Buy some bait. If you don't win, you can always buy your stuff. And by the way, you can use that discount code on a number of products, and Boat Life has a ton. So it's not only live well and bait well cleaner, but they've got polish, they've got boat wash, they got everything. So anyway, when you support our advertisers like Boat Life, you support FishTalk. So please give them a visit and help us out, and appreciate that. Now, without further ado, I'm going to bring on our angler-in-chief, Mr. Lenny Rudo.
Hey there, Chris.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. It's not bad. You know, the weatherman got today wrong. I mean, wrong.
I canceled a snakehead trip this morning, and I'm very upset about it.
I mean, I was anticipating a full day of rain, clouds, and heat. And it's kind of cool outside. It's blue skies. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, net result, the moment we get done here, my intention is to head for the slip.
Wow.
So let's get started, why don't we, right?
All right, absolutely. We'll do this. Let me get rid of me.
Okay, now, first off, before we jump in, I want to say two things. First thing is, folks, don't forget, if you have any questions at any time, pop them right up into the comments. Chris will relay them to me, and we will address them immediately. Second thing is, I want to apologize for not being here last week. Now, I know Zach did a great job talking snakes. He knows his stuff on the snakeheads and the kayaks. There is no question about that. He's a better person, honestly, to talk about it than I am. And but like I say, I'm sorry I missed it. Kind of, really, nah, I'm not really sorry I missed it. I had the chance to go offshore with my friend Dale on the heat wave, and you know, it was my first offshore run of the year. It's been tough to get him going with this COVID nonsense going on, and I'll apologize for not apologizing. I really wanted to go. Now, it was a slow day. It really was. It was before all this tuna action that recently has come up, busted loose, and we had one mako probably midday on the troll. Other than that, we got nothing. And we were at the Norfolk, and it just wasn't happening. Now, we did save the day. And the way we saved the day was we caught a bunch of blue line tilefish. And that's something we're going to talk about, because today's topic is how to save the day when you're offshore and it just ain't happening. Now, you know what, people? I don't care who you are. I don't care how good you are. This happens sometimes. You get out there for whatever reason, the bite just is not on. You're in the wrong place, whatever it may be. The fact of the matter is, you can't have success all the time. So what do you do when you've invested all the time and effort and money and getting down to the beach, running out offshore, and the fish just aren't cooperating? Well, Chris, bring us on slide number one, because this is my number one option, is bailing for Mahi. Now, I know Mahi don't get the same, you know, glory as a tuna or the billfish, but that's a good eating fish right there that you're looking at in that picture. And it's a heck of a good fight on 20, 30-pound class spinning gear. Now, the reason I wanted this picture up first was so you can see in the background that brown blob behind him. That's Jeff, my buddy. I call him Instant because anytime you call him and say there's a spot on the boat, he instantly says, yes, I'm there. Anyway, That's a weed patty. When you're offshore and you spot a weed patty like that and the water is above 70 degrees, there is an absurdly good chance that there will be some dolphin underneath of it. So keep your eyes peeled for that kind of thing when you're out offshore. All right, Chris, take us on to the next slide here. Now, what you see here, can we make that one a little bigger, Chris, so it's easier to see? This is actually on the free spool, the one of the all-tackle boats running out of Ocean City. We were fishing with Keith that day, and I want you to see that. Notice that orange bucket in the middle there sitting on the deck. That's full of fish chunks. And having a bunch of fish to chunk up, or squid, is kind of a key feature to being prepared to bail for mahi when you want to save the day with this tactic. You got to have a bunch of fish you can hack up, or a bunch of squid. Now, the other thing I want to point out here, you can see the gentleman on the left there is fighting a little dolphin. He's got a 20-pound class spinning rod in his hands. It has 30-pound braid on it. It's got a 30-pound fluoro leader after that. You can go to 40. Sometimes you get a little sketchy on the leaders, but not very often. Interestingly, the dolphin are usually all or none. Like they generally speaking just attack everything. But there will be days when you'll see them swim up and they'll look at stuff and they'll turn around and swim away. And we're going to talk about how to address that in just a moment. All right, Chris, go on. Take us to the next one here. And what you're looking at here, I call this offshore gold. If you see a log like this with stuff growing on it, floating around, again, 70-degree plus water, anywhere from 30 plus miles out, sometimes as close as 12, 15 miles out, something like that, that is pure gold. Any kind of flotsam, the mahi love of it's great to pull up and start bailing. Start throwing those chunks and then throwing a couple of baits. Now, my general rule of thumb is I want something the size of a 5-gallon bucket or larger. Okay? Balloons are irrelevant. It's extremely rare to find them under balloons. You'll stop at 1,000 balloons before you finally find one that has some fish under it. You want a hard item like a log or a big weed patty like we were saying earlier that's at least the size of a 5-gallon bucket. And yes, by the way, 5-gallon buckets work too. All right, Chris, go ahead and take us on to the next one here. This is the most reliable item you're going to find offshore, and it's the commercial fishing gear balls, the floats that you see out strung out along the canyon edge. Often they're right around 100 fathoms, sometimes a little farther in, sometimes a little farther out. Often they run all the way up the continental shelf. These guys do pull their gear and clean it and put it back out, so occasionally you can't find it. If you run north, run south, you can usually find some, here or there. Chris, can we make this one a little bigger here too? Because I want to point out something, and I'm not talking about the big splash on the left, which is a lovely indication of me missing the awesome shot of the mahi jumping out of the water. It had already landed. However, you can see on that ball, you see a bunch of algae and growth on the bottom of it. When you see that, that's really good. Okay, the more growth you see, the better it is. When you see a brand new fresh ball and there's no growth at all in it, you're not as likely to find fish. And I bring this up because a lot of times you're going to hop from one to the next to the next of these floats. Usually when you're at one, there's going to be another 1, 2, 3 on the horizon somewhere. You can bop from one to the next and hit them one after the other. Often, every third float will have fish. Sometimes every float has fish. Sometimes every fifth float has fish. It's kind of hard to say, obviously. But the dirty ones do tend to hold a lot more fish than the fresh ones. And if you find one with a high flyer, that's one of the buoys in front of this float right here that sticks up with a radar reflector, that's even better. The more junk in the water, the better it is. All right, Chris, go ahead and take us one more here. Now, this is a really important slide. I know that fish doesn't look like much. That's just your regular old little chicken dolphin. That's probably your average fish around the floats, around a weed patty. You do get them bigger, but you got to work for them. Sometimes you'll pull up and you'll just see them and you'll get lucky. But honestly, you could fish bailing balls 10 times through the course of a season and never see your 30-pounder. But this photo right here shows you how to find that 30-pounder. Look in the upper right-hand corner. You see a pink jigging spoon. Doesn't have to be pink, but it's a 4-ounce jigging spoon. And here's the trick. When you pull up to a spot, let's say you're pulling up to a ball or pulling up to a weed patty, you throw in your handful of chunks, you throw in a couple of baits, you're watching, you're looking to see if any dolphins show up. Oh, holy cow, look at that. 20 little 5, 10 pounders just showed up and started swirling in the baits. Next thing you know, you got a fish on. Everybody's pell-mell, chaos in the cockpit, right? What you need to do is you need to have someone dedicated to that jigging spoon rod. If you got a crew of 6, you don't want more than 4 people bailing at the same time anyway. They'll just get all tangled up. Assign someone to take that spoon, drop it down between 100 and 150 feet, and then crank it back to the boat as fast as they can possibly throw the handle around. Now, what's going to happen is you're not going to catch fish on that spoon. Well, heck, maybe you will. I've been doing this for years and years and years. I don't think I've ever actually caught a fish on that spoon. Right? Might have happened once, but if it did, I don't recollect. But what happens is sometimes there are really big monster mahi that are hanging down deep below the main school of fish. They see that spoon go zinging by and they follow it. They don't hit it, but they follow it. Well, now they're up at the surface. They look around and they see your chunks and they see the little fish going crazy eating the chunks and they start eating chunks. Next thing you know, you got a major league target in there. Take a whole ballyhoo and flip that thing right out in front of that big boy. All right. A lot of times they'll kind of ignore the little chunks. Then we'll zoom around. They might eat some, but they're not terrifically interested. They want a big meal. A whole ballyhoo will do the trick. And they will go shooting over there and grab it. And now you've got your big fish on. Second tip I want to give you in this when we're talking about this, it can be a whole ballyhoo or it can be a whole squid. And this is really important. Chris, go ahead and make me big here for a minute. Well, I want to do a live demo because on occasion you will find, you'll see the fish. They'll even swim up to the chunks. They might eat them, they might not. But they just will be disinterested in eating anything. This is one of those really hard scenarios. Doesn't happen often, but if you bail mahi often enough, you will encounter this where you'll actually see them right there and they just won't eat. What do? Here's the way you save the day. First off, never leave port without at least 2 boxes of squid. I'm not talking about big giant rigging squid or anything, just the regular little boxes that cost like $4. They sell in the bait shop for flounder fishing. You got squid about the size of this plastic squid in there, all right? And before I show you this, I'm just going to point out this plastic squid, the tentacles are a little short and the body is a little long. It really should be, the body should end up here and the tentacles should be a little longer. It's an imperfect plastic squid. I apologize, the best one I could come up with. What you're going to do is you're going to take your little squid out of your box. You got to have them thawed. Take your squid. Take your snippers. Snip the very tip of his mantle off. Okay? Then you're going to take your 30-pound test. Okay? Don't go any heavier because when the fish are acting real spooky, they don't like leader. You're going to thread it in to the little hole you just made in his mantle. It'll get jammed up in there. When that happens, spin it. Spin it in your fingers, spin that leader, and just keep working it on through. Of course, now it's not going to work for me. We'll get it going there. Just spin it, work it on through there until it pops out the other end. Where is it? All right. So now we got this squid on the leader. Right next, we're going to take a little 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce egg sinker. We're going to thread it on the line. Just drop it down. All right. Now we're going to take, we're going to take our hook. You want an 8/0, maybe a 10/0. You're going to tie it on the end. Come on now. All right, now I got a circle hook right here. You can use circles or J's for dolphin. The J's, honestly, I think get a better bite, but the flip side of that is if you get a 30-pounder on a J hook with 30-pound leader, there's a very good chance he will chew through it before you will land that fish. If you got him on a circle hook, he's just chewing on metal. So, you know, it's kind of a judgment call there, so what you want to try. All right, now I got it like this. Now we're going to take our squid, and just let them slide down. Now, with a real natural squid, that egg sinker is going to work its way up in here. It's not going to happen with the plastic, obviously. But I'm just going to slide it down. I want the hook to come out either in the tentacles or right at the bottom of the mantle. What I don't want is for the mantle to get curved because there's tension, because there's not enough room between the weight and the hook. If that's happening, I'm going to slide that egg sinker up a couple inches. I'm going to take a rubber band, and I'm going to tie it around it. around the line. I'm sorry. And that is going to help hold that weight in place. All right. And then you can get a little bit of room in between the weight and the hook. Now, once that's all set up, I see my Mahi. He's not eating anything. I'm going to throw this out about 5-10 feet in front of him and just free spool it. Let it fall. That weight is going to take that squid zooming down. Not zooming, but it's going to go, and his little tentacles are just going to go. And I tell you what, there isn't a Mahi on the face of the planet that can resist that. It's going to come charging over, and it's going to swallow that sucker. That's your day saver right there. When you cannot get the Mahi to bite, do that, and I'm telling you, that's really good. That's going to work. Okay. All right, Chris, take us on to the next slide. Here's another way you can save the day, and this is what we did last week on the heat wave. Water temperatures in Norfolk were running 67, 68. Not going to find dolphin. So we put on what amounts to some heavy-duty bottom rigs and some leads that were maybe 2 pounds and dropped squid chunks down at the bottom and caught blue line tilefish. Blue line tilefish are generally going to be found in the say 250 to 350 range. They'll go a little deeper. You want to find them on hard bottom. Okay, rocky bottom is the best. That's kind of the area usually you're going to find them in. What I get asked all the time is, how do I find these spots? How do I get a blue line tile spot? Here's a trick. And it'll take a little while, but it'll totally work. And you've probably seen before where you're running offshore and you've seen some commercial fishing gear like those pots. It's kind of been in the middle of nowhere. It's like not at the canyon edge, but it's, 55 miles out. It's just a few miles from the edge. It's in like 250 feet of water. What the heck is it doing there? Well, it's fish traps for either blue lines or sea bass or both, because often the sea bass, big black sea bass, will often be mixed in with blue lines. When you see those floats, when you're running by, make a waypoint. Hit your chart plotter and make a waypoint. And when you get the chance to try some blue line fishing, try fishing right there, because the commercial fishing gear is not just accidentally dropped off in the middle of anywhere. And I've probably picked up 3 or 4 good blue line spots literally just by doing that, just by paying attention and saying, oh, that's strange. There's a pot there. I'm going to mark this spot. And then coming back to it at a later date, or actually I have stopped and fished right next to it before. And you're very likely to find the fish. The other thing you can do is, if you know there's some good hard bottom, Rocky Bottom towards the Washington is a pretty well-known zone for them. No one's going to be shocked to hear that there are blue line tiles there. Very large area. There are better spots and spots that aren't so great. But if you poke around and do a little bit of work, you'll find some really good spots there. All right, take me over to the next slide there, Chris. Now, if you're not real thrilled with the whole drop in the big bottom rig thing, this is what I like to do. I love doing this right here. I'll take jigging gear and I'll drop down like a 400, 450 gram jig. I tell you what that is in ounces, but I have no clue. I don't know why they stamp grams on my jigs. It really kind of annoys me, frankly. I don't know how many ounces it is. It feels like maybe 5, maybe 6. I don't know. Anyway, you can see this is a single top hook rig here. It's got that thing laying on top of the fish there is a big chunk of squid. Can you just drop down the jigs and jig them and will you catch fish? Yes, you absolutely will. If you put a chunk of squid on the hook, you will absolutely catch fish a lot quicker. So your call. Do whatever you like. All right, Chris, take me over to the next slide. Now, if you want to catch something a little bigger, golden tiles get pretty darn honking big. That one right there was pushing 50 pounds. If you fish them regularly, most of the ones you catch are going to be 15, 20, 25, but you can get into some 40, 50 pounders. That's a pretty honking big fish to save the day with. And here's the even better news. The golden tiles feed on, well, anything they can find down there in 600-800 feet of water, but one of the things they feed on is lobsters and crabs, and they taste very shellfishy. If you take a tilefish fillet, golden tilefish fillet, not the blue line, the golden, take the golden tilefish fillet, steam it, and make crab cakes just the way you normally make crab cakes, you can fool people into thinking they're crab cakes. It's that shellfishy. Really good stuff. Again, go ahead and take us to the next one, Chris. Again, you can use your standard kind of meat rig. We call this a meat curtain. This is a 5-hook grouper rig that they use down south. It's got a 12-aught circle hooks. I think there's 5 or 6 of them on there. And I bait them with squid and with fish. With this kind of rig, I'll alternate the baits. I'll do a squid, then a fish, then a squid, then a fish, purely because the fish stays on there a little better. And the tilefish will hit both. There are rare occasions where they'll favor a bait, but I usually find the leak wherever the heck you send down there. Except ballyhoo. Ballyhoo doesn't seem to work real good. I don't know why. And I have seen some rare days where you had to put down sea clam, and that was just what they wanted. No idea why. That's pretty rare, but I have seen that happen. I was fishing one day in the Poor Man's with John Unkert, and he had insisted on bringing sea clams. And I was like, yeah, what's the difference? And for whatever reason that day, they wanted the sea clam, and it was a good thing we had them on board because they didn't want nothing else. All right, take me one more slide, Chris. And here we're going to see, yes, you can jig for them too. Again, I don't know the ounces. 750 grams on that jig right there. If I could find 800-gram jigs, I would get them. 900 grams, I would get them. 750 is about the biggest you can normally find. Now, Chris, can you make this picture big? Because I want to make it a little easier to see. I really didn't get any bigger, I guess because of the format. Well, what you can't see too well is this jig actually has 2 hooks. It has a treble hook on the bottom, and it has a single hook up top. And what I like to do here is I take a whole squid and I kind of swirl it around that treble on the bottom and push it over all 3 times on the treble, kind of make a circle with it and squish it down there on them. And then I take a fish chunk or something else that's a little hardier, and I put that on the top hook so that if I get a hit and I miss it, I don't feel like, oh my God, I got to reel up 800 feet. I take this jig, I drop it down to the bottom, and I just dangle it. The motion of the boat going up and down on the waves in the ocean is more than enough action. Jigging does not seem to help anything, and it does kind of make you miss hits sometimes. If you just sort of hover that thing within a couple feet of the bottom, those golden tiles will absolutely slam it. So again, I get asked all the time, how do I find a golden tilefish spot? Most guys guard their numbers with a vengeance. It is not easy to get a hold of numbers. But I tell you what, I got my start with some numbers that came from a longliner who had retired, and they were effective. But now I've got, I don't know, a pile of good golden tile spots in my machine, and those were the only numbers I was given. Here's what I found. What you really want to look for is a plateau on the edge of the shelf. It can be in one of the canyons, doesn't have to be. Okay, you'll find it both on both tips of the Washington. You'll find it on both tips of the Baltimore. You can find places like this. You'll find it at Poor Man's. What you want. So we all know you go to the edge of the shelf. What do you see? It's once you hit about that 100 fathom line, it tends to drop off real quick, right? It goes 6, 630, 650, 680, 7, 720, 800. Sometimes it goes 6, 650, 680, 700, 702, 703, 705, 710, 712, 750, 780, 800. That plateau where the drop off, it's dropping down really hard and it just kind of stops and evens out for a little bit and then drops again. That plateau, that's a golden tile spot. Okay. A lot of guys say look for green mud. Some people say that they will take a pipe, just a little piece of copper pipe, cap one end, put a heavy weight on there, drop it down, drag it, pull it up, look at the mud. I've never done any of that. I just look for these kind of plateaus, and I tend to look for them when I'm trolling. I'm kind of trying to always keep an eye out while I'm trolling over the edges. And when I see a spot like that, I'll mark it, and then I'll either come back when I'm trying to catch tilefish, or again, if it's been a lousy day, I don't have any other tilefish spots nearby, I'll come and try it. I don't want to, maybe a third, a half of the time when you find a plateau like that and just do a couple of drifts on it, you'll discover that it's a good golden tilefish spot. So you can't expect immediate results all the time, but a pretty fair bit of the time you'll find that it works. So you want to look for those anywhere between 600 and 800 feet. I do really like the 700-foot mark. You will find them deeper. The reason I stop at 800 feet, you can see the kind of jigging rod that I use. That's a Torsa 16 with 65-pound braid on it. Once I get over 800, I'm pushing my depth range. I fished 850 with it, but if there's any kind of tighter current, I can see the spool through the line, and I don't really like that whole big bunch. So, you know, depends a little bit on what kind of gear you got. Braid is an absolute must for this. I should have said that with the blue lines. Once you're over a couple hundred feet of water, if you're fishing with mono, you're not feeling a darn thing. Years ago, when I first started trying to catch golden tilefish, I tried this with a Penn International 30 with mono on it. And I did a couple drifts. First drift, I didn't catch anything. The second drift, I didn't catch anything. And I was reeling up, and I was like, darn, I didn't catch anything. And I got up near the boat, and there was about a 15-pound tilefish on it. I just had no clue. Because with the mono, you simply can't tell. Got to be great. All right. Chris, we've run through my slides here. Do we have any questions?
I got to tell you, we don't have a lot, but I do have one from Kevin, who was talking about the blue line and, you know, the depths.
Okay, so for blue line, no. And I should have said feet if I made it possible to think it was fathoms. I apologize. No, 250 to about 350 feet of water. Going between fathoms and feet requires math, which confuses me. So 100 fathoms times 6, I can do that okay. You know, 50 fathoms isn't the end of the world, but you get much aside from that, and math doesn't work in this brain right here. So I apologize for that. 250 to 350 feet. That's kind of your range for your blue line. Some guys do fishermen 400. I know that, and you know, I've certainly heard that before. But I kind of find that, you know, 250, 350 to be the sweet spot for me.
Okay. It's really not a question, but Walt just wanted to point out that, you know, 300 grams is about 10 and a half.
So, no, you know, I know Walt. Walt's got a math brain. He can handle that stuff. I'm an American who can't do math. I don't want to hear about grams. I don't want to hear about meters. All right? Give me feet and miles, please, and ounces and pounds.
Yeah, yeah. David wanted to know, is that I can't say
sargassum. That. Yeah, sargassum. Yeah, with an M. It is, and it's not like you can find it reliably off our coast. You know, some years you run into it every dang time you go fishing. Other years you see it once or twice, and other years you don't see it at all. It's just, you know, it's kind of a crapshoot. But if I'm trolling around, even if I'm trolling for tuna or whatever, I see a big giant weed patty like in that first picture, I'll tell you what, I'm very likely to stop and work it. You know, it is true that you're not going to get the tuna that way. You're not going to get the billfish that way, at least not normally. I have at least one time had a billfish come up on chunks. Actually, twice I've had billfish come up on chunks. But, you know, it's certainly an oddity. It's not the norm. But, you know, who doesn't like catching a bunch of mahi? And if you get a big giant weed patty like that, you're likely to see, you know, either big numbers of fish or a few really big fish. And plus, you never know what the heck you're going to find under that stuff. Last year, we had a triple tail end up on the line. Mm-hmm. You know, how many triple tail have you heard of being caught off the coast of Maryland? Doesn't happen often. One of my boys last year caught a Almaco jack, which is kind of like an amberjack, but you know, heck, it's another interesting fish. I never caught one before, so I thought that was pretty neat. You just never know with this stuff. Found a lot of triggerfish too.
Cool. Kevin Tung, longtime watcher, second-time question asker. I remember him from a couple weeks ago. How far out do you have to go to catch some mahi-mahi off Ocean City?
So, Kevin, there is no easy answer. This is going to be a little bit of an extended answer because it changes every year, and it can change week to week. Some years, you're going to have to run all the way out to the edge of the shelf and look for those lobster balls to catch them reliably. If you troll around all day at the Hambone Hot Dog 35, 40 miles out, sure, you can always luck into one. But to really get them reliably and target them bailing, some years you got to go all the way out there. Now, I'm going to say probably every other year, there will be enough stuff floating around, be it boards or weed lines or whatever, that at places like the Hambone, the Hot Dog, the Jack Spot, you'll find them fairly reliably, you know, 35, 40, 45 miles out. probably every other year, probably every third year, the conditions are right, such as that they come in closer and they stay in. And last year is a good example. Last year, I did a couple of trips where we went and we just fished bass pots, 15, 18, 20, 22 miles out. Those fields of bass pots held mahi. Now, again, it can change week to week. We had 2 weeks of really good fishing with them. By really good, what I mean is we ran out there. We didn't spend the whole day doing it. We trolled the jack spot. We caught some kingfish. Then we went out and hit the bass pots. Maybe we spent, I don't know, 3-4 hours hitting bass pots. And I want to say one day we had about 20 dolphin, and the other day maybe a dozen. Mostly 5-pounders, some in the 10-pound range, which is pretty common for those bass pots. Normally it's not the real big ones. You know, you're talking 10, 12-pounder is going to be a nice one. But we did that 2 weeks in a row, and then went there a third time, and poof, they were just gone. Dirty Water had moved in, and it was a whole different ballgame. They cruised. They didn't like it. I think that day, I think we caught 2, and you know, in like 4 hours. So not great. So it varies. It varies quite a bit. The closest I've ever caught in Ocean City is in the bass pots about 12 miles out. I would say that's unusual. I usually don't even really start looking until I'm 15, 18 miles out, more likely 20, 22, 24. And again, this is one of those things when I'm doing a long run offshore, if I see a field of bass pots, you kind of know where they are on the sites, on the, you know, the reef sites, on the bass grounds. But I'll mark them on the GPS just so I know where they are, you know, and they do move them around sometimes. If you don't have the Ocean City Reef Foundation's chart book, you need to get it. It's a minimal donation. I want to say it's like $50, and you get like a gazillion GPS coordinates for all the different reef sites, and the bass grounds and all the places they planted stuff, and all of those areas are good candidates. Again, once you get outside 12, 15 miles, I should say if I saw a beautiful board like that one we showed earlier, inside of 12 miles, I'll stop and look at it. I was out fishing out of Egg Harbor, New Jersey one time, 5 miles from the inlet, and we saw a board, and the guy I was with insisted on stopping. I was like, dude, we're 5 miles out. We're not going to find a mahi there. And I'll be danged if he didn't throw a bucktail at that board and pull out a fish. So you never know.
David's asking a question that I kind of was curious about myself.
Bass pot. So those are the ones that the floats look just like basically the big crab pots, right? The round floats with a stick sticking up. You'll see fields of them. You'll see some that have flags. You'll see some that have some, you know, occasionally you'll see some in the field that have radar reflectors on them. There's sea bass traps the commercial guys set out there on those reef sites in those areas. Yeah, they're fish traps.
Okay.
What you're looking for is the floats, and what you're looking for is fields of them. And expect to bounce around them. You know, you might hit 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there's some fish. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there's some fish. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there's a fish. You know, kind of like that. But these fields often consist of, you know, 15, 18, 20 of them. And, you know, you work one, you might have to run to another. Again, if you got the Reef Foundation's chart book, you've got, you know, most of the spots where those bass pots are going to be found. And sometimes you find really crazy stuff. I mean, you know, well, cobia. I've caught cobia in them before. I've caught barracuda in them before, believe it or not, right out of OC, 12, 15 miles out. You just never know what's going to show up there. Triggerfish are another one. You'll see triggerfish there.
Cool. And apparently Walt isn't listening because I actually think I know the answer to that, but go ahead.
So, yes, Walt, you'll catch him in 68, okay? You'll catch him in 69. It'll happen. But it's not really like what they want. It's not the norm. It's not what you're looking for. 70 degrees and up is all good. 72 and up is even better. But like, you know, if I want to go search for them, if I'm out in the canyon trolling and I'm looking at 68-degree water the whole time, I'm not expecting to see them. I'm not. You might get lucky, but you really want it over 70 degrees.
Cool. Kevin just wanted to comment that the pallets are also great for attracting value.
A wooden pallet is like, again, it's like the pot of gold over the rainbow. Absolutely, Kevin. Absolutely. Man, I love finding stuff like that. You know, the best thing I ever found was actually a tree, an entire tree. Still had all its limbs on it. It was like 40 feet long. And this thing supported an ecosystem. I mean, it had every kind of fish you can imagine swimming around it. It was just amazing, absolutely stellar. Found a refrigerator once. That was really good. And caught a couple of really nice ones out from that refrigerator. We got some 30-pounders off the fridge. That was good. Interesting little tidbit. Actually, I meant to talk about this a little earlier. This stuff moves really rapidly. We fished the refrigerator in Poor Man's one day, and the next day we heard someone on the radio talking about fishing a refrigerator in Baltimore. And I really doubt there were two refrigerators out there. The dolphin move in the same way. I used to think that when they usually set up shop on those the offshore pots, the ones at the canyon edge, they usually set up shop by like late June, early July, and hang out there through the summer, often through September. And I used to think they just hung out around those pots all the time. But years ago, when I had a boat at the fishing center and was able to get offshore a whole lot more, I joined in a tagging program, tagging and releasing dolphin. And one of my tag returns came back. Two tag returns came back. One of them totally shocked me. It was it was like a 24-inch fish, right? So a little chicken mahi that I had caught at one ball and tagged, and it was caught literally the next day, 7 miles away. 7 miles away. The other tag return that I got was like 2 weeks later, but it was off of New York. So these fish are moving. They are not just sitting at those lobster pots all the time. And it's probably, you know, the summertime bailing at the pots thing is one of the most reliable fisheries around. But it's not 100%. You know, they come, they go, they move around, they move fast. Well, we have any more questions, Chris, or is that it?
I think that's going to be about it for today, Lenny. I want to point something out before I announce the winner of our Boat Life product. And that is that you only get one name in the hat. So if you ask multiple questions, it's not going to increase your chances of winning the prize. And the reason why I point that out is because David McHenry is our winner. And he posted several times, but I want you to know that he did it. That isn't not why he won. It just is the luck of the draw. So anyway, I don't want anybody like putting their questions in as one word in each post so that it might actually increase their chances of winning things like, you know, live well cleaner. So anyhow, but we did have a great audience, and David, I'm going to instant message you for your shipping address, and we'll get that out to you. As always, I want to thank everybody for joining us. If you could do us a favor, and that is just like this video or love it or give it a kiss or whatever those emoticons are, do that. Those little things, believe it or not, help us. They help distribute the video out to more people, and it gives us a higher ranking and all this other marketing crap. It just helps us. And that's what we really need is just to make sure that everybody finds Fish Talk. And of course, if you share this to friends and stuff like that, that's also very, very well appreciated. Lenny, what's the next offshore trip that you're going to take?
That depends entirely upon what the moronic weatherman says.
Oh, yeah. How's that?
And when I get a window. Because I'll tell you what, you'll see it coming in the reports tomorrow, folks. There was a red-hot flash of tuna action. It was in the poor man's zone, poor man's to Baltimore. It was red-hot for a couple days. And then, of course, it started blowing so much that no one's been able to go for like, I don't know, it was like 4 or 5 days. I've been watching closely. I'd love to get out there and get in on those yellowfin. But we need the weather window. But with my boat, I'm not pulling it, putting it on the trailer, hitching it, and doing that drive and doing that run unless I got some good weather. So right. Fingers crossed.
Okie doke. Well, folks, stay tuned. And of course, next Thursday, Live with Lenny. Tune in. We'll have the subject up in just like we did this week, sometime Tuesday, Wednesday-ish. Around then.
As soon as we figure out what it is.
Yeah, figure as soon as we you'll be the first to know. Or the second to know. But thanks again, folks. We like doing these things, and we hope you like tuning in. Please let your friends and people you don't like that much, let them know as well. And thanks again. We'll be seeing you next time. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Chris.
Bye, Lenny.
Don't miss another cool Fish Talk video. Click below to subscribe.